afternoon, students.
Good afternoon, Teacher Regine.
Okay, so for today, before we have our new discussion, let's take a moment to stand up and have our opening prayer. So may I ask Miss Alalo to please lead the prayer.
Okay, let us pray. In the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Amen. Lord God, thank you for this wonderful day. Great us here together. Safely, safe and sound. We hope that today's discussion living in remote places and victims of war. Share appropriate classroom strategies and accommodations to support students in these circumstances through a case study analysis, and demonstrate empathy and respect toward individuals living in remote places and victims of war through a role play.
Okay, so at this point, we will be having another activity called word chain reaction. So, all of us, or all of you, will places in order to feel secure. The next one is loss of loved ones, disrupted education, because of course, as we all know, in wars, there are buildings, infrastructures, industries that are being destroyed. Therefore, and schools are one of them. Therefore, the education for these learners are already disrupted. The next one is psychological impact. Psychological impact, this may cause students anxiety, depression, trauma, which is caused by exposure to violence and loss. So, the next one is characteristics of students living in remote places. The first one is irregular school attendance and high dropout rates may be due to the far distance between schools and their homes. Next one is low academic achievement and literacy rates. Next one is resilient and resourceful. And the last one is socioeconomic vulnerabilities or their status in life. Therefore, they cannot afford to send their students or children to school. The next one is characteristics of students who are victims of war. So the first one is of course trauma. It has a trauma. Next one is fragmented and interrupted education, emotional distress, and social withdrawal and isolation. So, in order for us to deal with these kind of learners in the near future, we should be able to know the proper classroom strategies and accommodations in order to deal with that. So, I assume you have the copy for classroom strategies and accommodations for students who are living in remote places. Kindly read, everyone. Okay.
Integrate local stories, traditions, livelihoods, farming practices, fishing methods, indigenous crops,
lack of consistent internet connection, and also the unpredictable income of our family.
So how might inclusive education principles be applied to support Maria?
So, do you think that we can apply inclusive education in this scenario in terms of we can apply inclusive education even if malate siya or absent siya ng specific days, pag-abot na is naging may mga classmates na hindi ko naging siya sa mga naitawag ng mga previous days na absence and also ang teachers that is hindi siya, nagkakaroon siya ng allowance sa deadlines yung kaya kibigyan ng mga day kada extended deadline. And question number is, what resources or accommodation will be most beneficial for various learners?
So the most so we decided yes, na ito rin most beneficial for various learning is the tangible activities or tangible lessons like module, and that she can just study in her home, especially that it takes time na makabot sa school galing nila. And aside from that, also like fishing man sila, like they're work good in fishing, like a teacher can make that as a lesson for her, including knowledge about that.
Okay, very good. So let's keep our hands to group 1. Now, I guess group 2 is already ready.
Alright, so let me read first the case study number 2. So, Jose, a child soldier survivor, said, now 15, escaped conflict zone and is enrolled in a new school. He displays symptoms of PTSD, including nightmares, hypervigilance, and difficulty concentrating. Loud noises trigger intense anxiety. He struggles to engage in group activities and offend with Ross. He has significant schooling and lacks of basic literacy skills. He needs specialized support to catch up academically and emotionally. So here are the following questions. Number 1, what are the main barriers to education for Jose in this scenario? So the main barriers of Jose when it comes to his education is first is that he shows symptoms of PTSD, which includes nightmares and hypervigilance, and he has this short attention span in which he has a difficulty in concentrating, and aside from that, loud noises triggers his anxiety. So for us, that is the main barrier for Jose's situation when it comes to his education. Next is, how might inclusive education principles be applied to support Jose? So there are a lot of inclusive education principles that can be applied to Jose's situation. But then the first thing to do is that Jose should undergo appropriate evaluation since he shows PTSD symptoms. So that is why it is important for Jose to be evaluated so that the school or the teachers can plan for individualized education program which caters to his needs or Jose's educational needs, and therefore they can also decide on which particular learning environment should Jose be placed. Then number 3,
What resources or accommodation would be most beneficial for Jose's learning? So as what the story earlier was read by Ms. Reed, Jose, loud noises actually triggers Jose's intense anxiety. So with that, we should avoid loud noises, have quiet places, and of course supplemental materials, because in the story as well, there were he struggles with engage in group activities, and of course he often had withdrawals. So of course we should provide supplemental materials in order for him to catch up in the classes. Okay, thank you so much, Group 2. Let's give a hand to Group 2. So last but not the least, we have here Group 3.
so for group 3, our case study is here that
to apply your learnings, let's have a role play. So we call this Bridging Worlds. So with the same group, you will be given situations. I will be reading the situations. You will show it in front, and then you will show me a temporary or permanent solution, depending on you. A temporary or permanent solutions on how to overcome these difficult circumstances. Do you understand?
Yes.
Okay. So for group one, kindly pay attention. So for group one, show how a community in a remote area can overcome geographical barriers to education. So you need to show how a community will overcome geographical barriers to education in remote places. So this could be house to home visitation. It's up to you. So for group two, show how teachers and aid workers can create a safe and supportive learning environment for children who are victims of war, addressing trauma and providing psychosocial support. So you just need to show us how to create a safe and supportive learning environment for students who are victims of war and those who are in remote places. So for the third group, show how technology and partnership can be leveraged to deliver education to children in conflict zones or isolated communities. So this may include those private sectors, or how will the Philippine government could be, how the Philippine government or what programs, particular programs they can implement in order to solve this cases.
is mag-request ko o funds sa government na mabigyan siya mga country
Yes.
mag-hire sa mga teachers na makateach natin ng college.
Temporary schools and teachers.
Para sa kamay siyang area para makastart po sa small school guidance. If magsuot kapag everything starts in a smaller in the future, pwede ba siya mapatakot siya and then ano siya, masabi siya bigger school where laga na teachers students and mga so ito siya ako take solution
Okay. Okay, so doing the basic steps, hiring, let's say, let's say few teachers, and then we have students, or let's say basic classroom only. So that is a one great start. Okay, for the second, will you please speak? Close your eyes. Okay, for the scenario number 2, we have Miss Ihana. Okay, you are a teacher in a school that has recently received several new students who have been displaced due to conflict in another region. They seem withdrawn and struggle to focus. What strategies would you employ to help them integrate and learn effectively? These students are struggling in learning because they came from a